There was a time when muscle cars meant something. A big V8, a loud rumble, and a name that turned heads. But then came the 70s. Regulations, gas shortages, and one compromise after another. Detroit didn't just slow down, it lost its way. And in the process, it gave us these 10 cars, machines that wore the muscle badge, but couldn't back it up. Let's take a look at the worst of the worst. 1974 Ford Mustang II, Mach 1. This one still hurts. The Mustang used to stand for freedom, fast, loud, and untamed. But by 1974, that spirit was gone. Ford downsized it, stuck it on a Pinto chassis, and called it a Mach 1. What we got was a bloated little car with a 105 horsepower V8. That's less than some lawn tractors today. Worse, it actually weighed more than the original Mustang. So not only was it weak, it was slow. The design lost its muscle. Boxy, awkward, with none of the Mustang's signature flair. Inside, it felt like a rental car. Cheap plastics, rattly trim, and no soul. Sure, the gas crisis was real. Emissions rules were strict, but fans didn't want excuses. They wanted a Mustang. Instead, they got a shadow of what once was. And calling it a Mach 1? That wasn't just tone deaf, it felt like betrayal. To this day, some fans refuse to even call it a Mustang, and honestly, who can blame them? '73 Pontiac GTO. This one felt like watching a legend fall. The GTO wasn't just another muscle car, it was the muscle car. It lit the fire in the 60s, but by 1973, that fire was barely a flicker. On paper, it still had a 455 cubic inch V8, but new emissions rules and the switch to net horsepower dropped output to just 250 horses. That's a far cry from the beast it used to be. And the looks? Gone were the clean, aggressive lines. Instead, we got the new colonnade body. Bulky, heavy, and oddly shaped, with a split grille and round headlights tucked behind it like they were hiding. It didn't look fast, it didn't feel fast, and it sure didn't drive like a GTO should. Enthusiasts were stunned. How could something that once ruled the streets now look like your uncle's commuter car? The 1973 GTO wasn't just a misstep. It was a fall from grace, a painful reminder that even icons aren't safe from the smog era. 1978 Dodge Challenger, Mitsubishi Galant Lambda. If the Mustang II was a disappointment, this was a full-on identity crisis. In 1978, Dodge made a move that left car lovers scratching their heads. They brought back the Challenger name, but instead of building a true American muscle car, they rebadged a Mitsubishi coupe from Japan. That's right, the second-gen Dodge Challenger was actually a Mitsubishi Galant Lambda in disguise. It looked soft, drove soft, and had all the personality of a toaster. Under the hood, there was no V8, no Thunder, just a 1.6 or 2.6-liter four-cylinder engine making, at best, 105 horsepower. The original Challenger was bold, wide, and loud. This one? Narrow, awkward, and quiet. It felt more like a fuel-conscious compromise than a statement of power. To slap the Challenger badge on this car wasn't just lazy, it was offensive to fans who remembered what the name used to stand for. This wasn't a comeback, it was a cover-up, and most people wish Dodge had just left the name alone. 1976 Chevrolet Camaro Rally Sport. At first glance, it looked like a Camaro. The long hood, the low stance, the split bumper, it had all the right shapes, but once you turned the key, the illusion fell apart. By 1976, the Camaro Rally Sport had lost its bite. The base engine was a 305 V8 with just 140 horsepower. Even the optional 350 V8 barely pushed 165. For a car that once roared with confidence, this version barely mumbled. And it wasn't just the engine that disappointed. Thanks to new safety and emissions regulations, the car had gained weight, lots of it. That extra bulk made it feel sluggish in corners and lazy off the line. Paint quality was poor, rust was common in the interior, cheap plastics and cracking dashboards everywhere you looked. It was a car that looked like a muscle car until you tried to drive it. The 1976 Rally Sport may have kept the Camaro name, but it left the spirit behind. 1973, Chevrolet Chevelle SS 454. With a name like SS 454, you'd expect thunder. But by 1973, that thunder had turned into a wheeze. This was supposed to be the big bad Chevelle, the one with a massive 454 cubic inch V8 under the hood. And sure, the engine was still there, but new emissions rules and the shift to net horsepower ratings dropped output to just 245 horses. That's a massive fall from its late 60s peak. To make matters worse, the SS was now stuck with the new colonnade body style, heavier, bulkier, and missing the sleek, aggressive lines that made earlier Chevelles so iconic. The wide B-pillars and long roofline gave it a bloated look that left fans cold. And if the styling didn't disappoint you, the reliability might. Overheating, oil leaks, and a thirst for gas made this a headache to own, especially in the middle of an oil crisis. The 1973 SS 454 wasn't just underpowered, it was out of place. A muscle car in name only, limping through the decade it used to dominate. 1975 Pontiac Firebird formula. The Firebird once had attitude, bold looks, serious power, and a name that carried weight. But by 1975, the formula version had lost its edge. On the outside, it still looked like a performance machine. Under the hood, not so much. The once mighty 350 V8 had been strangled down to just 175 horsepower, thanks to tighter emission standards. It sounded tough, but it couldn't back it up. Acceleration was sluggish, and the thrill just wasn't there. To make things worse, the build quality took a nosedive. The single-stage paint faded fast, vinyl roofs cracked, and moisture crept in, causing rust in all the wrong places. Inside it was the same story, cheap plastics, loose trim, and an overall sense that corners had been cut. Fans of the early Firebirds were left shaking their heads. This wasn't the street fighter they remembered. The 1975 formula looked like a muscle car, but it felt like a cost-saving exercise. And for Pontiac, that was a real shame. 1975 Plymouth Roadrunner. Once a symbol of affordable speed, the Roadrunner had always been about doing more with less. Raw, fun, and straight to the point. But by 1975, it had lost its way. The body had grown big and bulky, trying to chase the personal luxury trend instead of sticking to its muscle car roots. The once lean Bird now looked heavy and confused, with styling that lacked both aggression and identity. Under the hood, things weren't much better. The top engine option was a 400 cubic inch V8, making just 235 horsepower. Respectable for a cruiser, but unworthy of the Roadrunner name. Worse yet, the performance had been traded for plushness. Soft suspension, extra weight, and bland handling made it feel more like a Cordoba than a street racer. It was a muscle car caught in an identity crisis, no longer cheap, no longer fast, and no longer fun. The 1975 Roadrunner wasn't just slower, it was directionless. And for longtime fans, that was the biggest disappointment of all. 1978 Ford Thunderbird. By 1978, the Thunderbird was a far cry from the sleek personal luxury cars that once turned heads in the 60s. What had once been bold and elegant was now bloated and clumsy. The 78 model rode on a stretched mid-size platform and weighed over 2 tons. It looked massive, and it drove like it. Under the hood, a variety of V8s were offered, but none delivered real excitement. The biggest issue? The infamous variable Venturi carburetor. It was supposed to improve fuel economy, but in practice, it stalled constantly and required endless tinkering. Owners joked you needed a priest, not a mechanic, to keep it running. Inside, it was all show and no substance. Plush seats, fake wood trim, and plenty of rattles. Gas mileage hovered around 12 miles per gallon, right when fuel prices were through the roof. The Thunderbird wasn't just slow, it was out of step with the times. What used to be a stylish cruiser had become a rolling contradiction. Heavy, thirsty, and past its prime. 1974 AMC Javelin AMX. AMC's Javelin AMX always had a unique look, long, low, and full of attitude. But by 1974, that style couldn't hide its problems. The biggest? Rust, and lots of it. The body trapped moisture around the wheel wells and rocker panels, and with a unibody frame, repairs weren't easy or cheap. Even the high-performance 401 V8 made just 255 horsepower, while base models felt downright sluggish. And the ride was floaty, the automatic gearbox was jerky, and the steering had a disconnected, rubbery feel. Inside, the materials wore down fast. Cracked vinyl, loose panels, and trim that rattled even on smooth roads. It was a car that looked fast, but didn't feel solid. For a brand trying to stand out, this version of the AMX came off as half-baked. Cool to look at, frustrating to live with. In the end, it proved that bold design only goes so far when the rest of the car can't keep up. 1974 Plymouth Duster 360. The Duster 360 was supposed to be Plymouth's budget performance car, a compact with just enough punch to keep things interesting. But in 1974, it missed the mark. Sure, it had a 360 cubic inch V8 under the hood, but emissions regulations choked it down to just 245 horsepower. Not terrible, but nothing special either, especially when paired with outdated suspension and poor traction. The real problem? Timing. The 74 model hit right after the oil crisis, and buyers weren't lining up for gas guzzlers. This little coupe drank fuel like a full-size muscle car, but didn't deliver the same thrills. Inside, the cabin felt basic and cheap. The ride was rough, handling was loose, and road noise was constant. It wasn't a bad car, just a forgettable one. And in the world of muscle cars, that might be the biggest sin of all, being neither fast enough to love nor bad enough to remember. The 1970s were tough on muscle cars. Regulations tightened, gas prices soared, and the golden age faded fast. Some models held on, others lost their way. And a few, well, never should have worn the badge in the first place. But if you lived through that era, you probably remember seeing these cars on the road. Maybe you even owned one. So tell us, did we get it right? Or did we leave something off the list that still makes your blood boil? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear the stories only you can tell.